Life has a way of testing people in unexpected ways. It challenges, breaks, and forces them to either surrender or fight back. This is the story of Gilland Glenn, a person who lost everything: dreams, confidence, and purpose, only to rise stronger than ever. A journey of resilience, self-discovery, and the life-changing power of never giving up. Gilland was a visionary, someone who had spent years building a dream. Hard work, late nights, and sacrifice had finally led to success, a business thriving, stability achieved, and a future that seemed limitless. But success is fragile. One financial crisis, a string of unfortunate events, and betrayal from trusted partners led to a collapse. Within months, everything was gone. The business shut down, debts piled up, and Gilland was left staring at an uncertain future. People who once admired and respected Gilland suddenly vanished. Friends stopped calling. Opportunities disappeared. And what was once a life of ambition turned into a daily struggle for survival. Failure has a way of making a person feel invisible. Gilland sat in a tiny, barely furnished apartment, staring at unpaid bills, rejection letters, and painful memories of what once was. Each day felt heavier than the last. The once driven entrepreneur now found it difficult to even get out of bed. The weight of failure was suffocating. "Life is like this rain," the man said, pointing to the dark sky. "It will pour, it will drench you, but it will also pass. The only way to survive is to keep moving, step by step." Those words struck a deep chord. Keep moving, step by step. For months, Gilland had been waiting for something, a miracle, a change, a sign. But maybe waiting wasn't the answer. Maybe it was time to take control again. Starting over was humiliating but necessary. Gilland took the only available job, washing dishes at a small cafe. It wasn't a prestigious role, nothing like the past, but it was something. The first few weeks were difficult. The mind constantly replayed memories of better times, making it easy to slip into self-pity. But little by little, the perspective began to shift. Instead of focusing on what was lost, Gilland focused on what could be rebuilt. Each dish washed became a reminder that hard work was still valuable. Each saved dollar was proof that progress, no matter how slow, was still progress. Gilland began spending every spare moment reading books on resilience, learning from those who had faced defeat but found ways to rise again. The realization hit: failure wasn't permanent, it was a stepping stone. One evening, after finishing a shift, Gilland noticed someone sitting alone in the cafe, a struggling entrepreneur, frustration clear in their eyes. That look was familiar. It was the same expression seen in the mirror months ago, the look of someone on the verge of giving up. Without hesitation, Gilland walked over and said, "I don't know what you're facing, but I do know this. Failure isn't final. You have more strength in you than you realize." The entrepreneur looked up, surprised. A conversation began, one filled with shared struggles, encouragement, and the realization that even in the hardest moments, hope could still exist. In that moment, Gilland understood something important. The hardest moments in life weren't just lessons, they were preparation for something greater. The months that followed were filled with disciplined effort. Every day was about taking small steps toward something better. Gilland saved enough money to take a risk, starting again, this time with a new perspective. Instead of chasing past dreams, a fresh start was embraced. The new venture wasn't just about profit but about impact. Every lesson learned from failure became the foundation of this new chapter. The business started small, but with intention. Slowly, things changed. Customers returned, opportunities opened, and the vision that once seemed lost began to take shape again. But this time, it was different. Gilland was no longer just building a business, but a life filled with purpose. Helping others became part of the journey, mentoring struggling entrepreneurs, sharing hard-earned lessons, and proving that even after losing everything, success was still possible. Years later, when people asked about the journey, Gilland would smile and say, "Losing everything was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it taught me that failure isn't falling down, it's refusing to get back up." Gilland had learned to accept the past, but was now determined to build a better future. Starting from scratch meant working longer hours, managing finances. Gilland had learned to accept the past, but was now determined to build a better future. Starting from scratch meant working longer hours, managing finances carefully, and, most importantly, rebuilding self-belief. One evening, sitting in a dimly lit cafe after work, Gilland sketched out a plan on a napkin. Simple ideas, nothing grand, just a starting point. "I don't need to rebuild what I lost. I need to build something new, something stronger." The new business idea wasn't about regaining lost wealth, but about creating something meaningful. This time, it wasn't just about money, it was about impact. But before Gilland could move forward, there was one more challenge to face: forgiving the past. One of the hardest things about starting over wasn't just financial struggle, it was the emotional weight of betrayal and failure. Gilland had trusted people who walked away, partners who had abandoned ship when things went south. One day, unexpectedly, one of those former business partners reached out. The message was simple. I heard you're starting again. I know I let you down before, but I hope you succeed. It would have been easy to reply with anger or ignore the message entirely, but instead, Gillen took a deep breath and responded, "We all make mistakes. I wish you well too." With that, a burden lifted. Holding on to resentment wouldn't bring success. Moving forward required letting go. Gillen's new business started humbly, no big offices, no expensive investments, just a simple idea, passion, and an unwavering commitment to never give up. It started slow. There were moments of doubt, nights of exhaustion, and weeks where it seemed nothing was working. Then, one day, something incredible happened. An old client from the previous business reached out. "I heard you're back at it. I always believed in your work. Let's talk." This was the turning point, a second chance. Gillen poured everything into this opportunity: long hours, personal sacrifices, and an unshakable belief that this time things would be different. The business grew, not overnight, not easily, but steadily. Each small win was celebrated because every step forward mattered. More clients came, but something had changed within Gillen. It wasn't just about profit anymore. Success now meant helping others, guiding people who were struggling just as Gillen once had. This shift in mindset changed everything. One evening, after a long day of work, Gillen walked into the same cafe where the journey had restarted. Sitting in the corner was a young man, hidden his hands, looking completely lost. Recognizing that look, the look of someone on the verge of giving up, Gillen sat down at the next table and waited. Minutes passed. Then, finally, Gillen spoke. "It's hard, isn't it? Feeling like the world has moved on without you?" The young man looked up, startled. "How do you know?" Gillen smiled. "Because I've been there." The conversation that followed was one of hope, resilience, and the reminder that setbacks are temporary, but the strength to rise is permanent. By the end of the night, the young man left with a new perspective, a small spark of hope in his eyes. Gillen had finally realized the greatest lesson of all. Success isn't just about personal achievements, it's about lifting others along the way. Years passed, and Gillen's business flourished, not just financially, but in impact. What once seemed impossible had become reality. The journey from failure to success was no longer just a personal story, it became an inspiration for many others. Gillen began mentoring others, sharing the journey openly, not just the victories, but the struggles, the failures, and the lessons learned. People started reaching out for guidance. Struggling entrepreneurs, dreamers who had lost their way, and those who just needed to hear You are not alone. Your story isn't over. And each time, Gilland would tell them, failure isn't falling down, it's refusing to get back up. Looking back, Gilland realized that losing everything was the greatest gift life had given. It taught resilience. It taught patience. It taught the value of every small step forward. One day, someone asked, if you could change the past, would you? Gilland thought for a moment, then shook their head. No, because if I had never fallen, I would have never learned how to rise. That is the power of resilience, the power of believing in yourself, even when no one else does. And that is the message for anyone facing their own storm. Keep moving forward, even if it's one step at a time, because no storm lasts forever. Your comeback is always stronger than your setback. Life will test you. It will push you to the edge, make you question everything, and try to break your spirit. But those who refuse to give up, who take even the smallest steps forward, will always find a way to rise again. Because the unbreakable spirit isn't about never falling, it's about always rising.